talking a little bit about the Veterans Job Fair coming up very soon. It will be Thursday. That'll be at the Air Zoo on Portage Road in Portage. A regional career fair exclusively for military veterans and their spouses. And so in preparation for that, we thought we might talk a little bit about that a couple of days in advance. Richard Fletcher joins us in the studio now with Veterans Employment Services, a part of the Workforce Development Agency at the state of Michigan. Richard, good morning.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's kind of a Richard party here today. That's okay. All right. So our intent is to talk a little bit about what to do to prepare for this and some of the information maybe you haven't heard recently as it relates to vets and employment. But I presume, if we just speak generally for a moment, that if we're having a job fair for veterans only, that there is a need to make these connections, generally speaking, right?
Absolutely. The statistics show that the unemployment rate for veterans is actually slightly higher than the national average for non-veterans. There's a lot of statistics that I could read off to you, but just in general, the unemployment rate was in 2014 was about 5.3. For veterans, it was also right around 5.3. But when we break that down, the Department of Labor has done a really good job of breaking down the numbers. We see that post 9/11 veterans actually have a much higher rate of unemployment, up to 6.9%.
Oh my!
So that makes a big difference, and they're really breaking it down and trying to figure out what makes it harder for those post 9/11 veterans to actually find jobs when they come back.
Have they reached any conclusions about that?
There are quite a few thoughts, and we know that there are some myths that employers have about veterans. For instance, they think that a veteran just wants a job. He gets out of the military, comes back, and he just wants a job, and that's not necessarily the case. There are some veterans who will work just about any job, but most veterans want a career just like anybody else, even more so. They've shown the loyalty already, so they're ready to come back and find a company that they can stay with for a long time.
Wow, that's interesting. So people think that they might just be looking for something to tide them over until the next thing, when that's not the case.
Right. I mean, they're not necessarily looking to just keep bouncing from job. I mean, nobody really wants to do that, especially not a veteran.
Right.
Another myth that we run into is that a lot of people think that veterans are uneducated. We get a lot of people who think, back in the day, if you had a criminal record, if you were going to go to jail, they would give you the option to go to jail or go in the military. That has changed tremendously over the years. Now, even if you have just a GED, you have to get a waiver to go into even the Army, any of the branches. So that's something that has changed.
Okay.
They are the most educated military force that we've had in history.
Wow, that's interesting to know. So we've whet your appetite. We'll have some more of these myths that we're trying to break here, and get some information about how to prepare, too, for a job fair like the one coming up on Thursday when we come back in a moment on WBCK 813 WBCK. We're talking about the Veterans Job Fair, which is coming up on Thursday at the Air Zoo in Portage. Richard Fletcher is here from the State of Michigan Workforce Development Agency. We've been talking about myths that employers may believe about veterans, and they are just that, myths. What are some others, Richard, that you have?
Well, a lot of people think that veterans and military in general only know how to follow orders. They're not free thinkers.
Wow.
But nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, you come into the military, and at age 19, you may be a squadron commander or something, not a commander, a leader. And so you have to make decisions that are life-altering decisions sometimes at a very early age. And so you're thinking, I mean, that's nothing could be further from the truth that they're not free thinkers. and that veterans only know how to lead, or excuse me, how to yell at people as leadership. You know, I
Been
mean, you
watching
think
too
about
many
the military,
movies.
right? You get yelled at all the time, but that's not the case. Um, the military brings their people up to understand that, you know, if the guy above me gets taken out or is unable to function, I need to be able to step into that role.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically build their leaders to take the place of the person above them at any point. So they're definitely teaching them to build that leadership and not just yell at people. That's not
Right.
what we do.
All right. Some more.
They think that veterans don't have applicable skill sets. If I hire a veteran, all he knows how to do is work a gun or, you know, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, 80% of the career fields in the military are directly relatable to jobs on the outside. So there's only 20% of those jobs that don't have something that relates directly to a civilian career. Even those jobs that are not directly relatable still have skills that the other the companies would want. For instance, you take a young man and you give him a $2,000 piece of equipment like a weapon. He has to know how to take that apart, how to troubleshoot it, how to put it back together, and he needs to know how to do that in a very stressful environment.
Right.
So, you know, you want those people who can think and who can stay calm in those kinds of environments. So, you know, that's a really important point to remember when you're looking at those veterans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that it turns out that some of the skills that they've honed are probably skills that some of us just, you know, in general, what we might meet on the street, haven't had experience with.
Oh, absolutely. Not only have you not had experience with it, but if you have had experience with it, you know, it's going to take you years to be as comfortable with that as they are, you know, in the first year or two, because, you know, you learn things quickly when you're being shot at, or, you know, and that's not to say that everybody who's been in the military has been shot at, but, you know, it's an entirely different mindset when they're working in the military. So they basically learn to pick up training scenarios much more quickly.
Okay. Are there others out there?
Sure, we tend to think that the veterans come from the lowest socioeconomic classes, and that's not true. Only about 7% of our veterans come from those lowest economic class communities. The rest are from median income households.
Mm-hmm. And so what? Even if they have, they've been in the military, they've seized an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we don't want people to think that it's only, you know, that people only go into the military to find a job or to get away from a bad environment. Most of our, you know, being a volunteer military, most of our people go there for the training, for the skills that they can get, and for the patriotism of it.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Richard Fletcher with the Workforce Development Agency at the state of Michigan. Richard is in the practice of helping veterans prepare as well for the workforce and getting back into the workforce, and we're going to talk a little about that when we come back in just a minute on WBCK 822 WBCK. Richard Fletcher is here from the state of Michigan Workforce Development Agency. Big job fair for veterans and their spouses coming up Thursday, 2 to 6 at the Kalamazoo Air Zoo on Portage Road in Kalamazoo. We're talking about preparing for that, or at least shattering some myths, we hope. And now we're going to talk about preparing for it. So someone's listening to this, Richard, and saying, yeah, I need to go to that. What are some of the things that they should know?
Well, first of all, we do ask that they pre-register. That would be if they go to your website. There's a link to it there, or they can go to southwestmichiganworks.org and find it there. So the pre-registration. The next thing is we would like them to understand that there will be interviews being done at the site.
Okay.
So dress accordingly. Dress like you're there to get a job. Bring copies of your resume. Bring a portfolio that shows some of the work you've done in the past. Bring reference sheets. So if you do fill out an application there, you'll have all that information about what jobs you had, who your references are, all that kind of stuff. We will actually have a bus on site that has like 20 computers in it that are online. So if they go in and talk to somebody and they say, yeah, go ahead and go out and fill out an application, they can run out to the bus and do the application right there.
Okay.
So the main thing, though, is just be prepared, be well groomed, and be polite and professional when you speak to people at the career fair.
So when a veteran is preparing a resume, is it acceptable then to prepare according to duty station and assignment and the types of skills that they gained in each duty station assignment?
Absolutely. What
Okay.
we recommend is just like any chronological resume, you
Yeah.
would start with your first assignment, what your duties were there, and then hopefully you're going to show a progression through those ranks.
Right.
And what we want to really caution the veterans about is using that military lingo, the jargon, because a lot of people just don't get that. You know, I mean,
Right.
it's common vernacular for us to say, you know, to use our MOS, which is our job classification, for instance, and you say to an employer, I'm an 88 Mike, for instance, they're going to be like, I have no idea what that is.
That is.
So
Yeah.
you have to break that down to English for them and say, I was a truck driver. I was Air Force, so I don't know the MOS is from the Army as well. But I think that was truck driver. But anyway, so you have to break that down and say, this is what I did. And that's what we're looking for. And the same thing with employers. I mean, if you're really serious about hiring veterans, you need to dig a little deeper. If they're talking over your head, you need to say, hey, what does that actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me in English what it was you did. A good source for some information on this is also on your website. It's a link. It's called Reinventing Michael Banks. And a group put this together to help veterans and to help employers come together and learn to speak a common language. So I recommend you go in there. It's scenario-based, so they'll show a little bit of a scenario, and then you get to choose which option you think that person should take, like
Okay.
Michael Banks being the veteran. And then it shows you the outcome of that choice, and then you can go through the other choices as well. So not only does it go by veterans' input, but then you can also see it from the employer's standpoint. So I think employers should go see this as well.
Okay, and we have that listed now. If you go to WBCKFM.com under events, the job fair is listed there, and if you click through on that link, you'll see the Reinventing Michael Banks link as well, and we'll be posting this along with this podcast video from our talk today, so it'll be there as well. So check back at WBCKFM.com. If you can't go to it right now, we'll have that for you in just a little while today. So, yeah, it is kind of interesting because military speak very often is sort of acronym speak, and that may be a whole language that a lot of us don't understand.
Absolutely. And the veterans, it's just so common for them that it's hard to get it out there. I mean, we have veterans that have been out for 15 years and still throw out a lot of the, we call it alphabet soup.
Yeah.
So we just, we caution them about that. And there are websites that you can go to that can help you understand how to translate those. Like they always want to say commanding officer or my CO when they should say my supervisor. Or my the office manager, that type of stuff. So just those little things that can really become a barrier between the employer and the candidate.
All right.
And if I may,
yes.
One of the things that we're doing is actually, as the employers come in, we're having a what we call lunch and learn with the prospective employers to show them the Michael Banks video as well, and so they kind of get in tune with what it is we're talking about, how to dig that information out from the veterans.
Okay. So that's what you can expect to see Thursday, November 5th, 2 to 6 at the Kalamazoo Air Zoo. So when you're putting this together, you've thought of those things. You've thought of trying to overcome some of the barriers that employers and potential employees might have at this. What else have you done that is important at a gathering like this to make these connections?
Well, like I mentioned, we've invited a bus from. It's also provided by Michigan Works, I believe, out of Muskegon. But it's got internet access, several seats, several computers where you can go online and do research on the companies that you're talking to, or work on your resume if you need to. It's got printers.
Okay.
It's even got a room in the back for interview space. So we do expect to see quite a few interviews taking place at the job fair, and hopefully even some people will walk away with a job that night. Is kind of our hope. But we've tried to have employers from throughout the Southwest Michigan region, all the way from Coldwater to St. Joseph County, Benton Harbor and
Mm-hmm.
St. Joe area.
Okay.
So there's going to be at least, I think, 50 employers signed up right now, and we expect to have even more by Thursday.
All right. And you've had quite a few of those step up and say, we want to sponsor you in this too, haven't you?
Absolutely, yes. Our biggest sponsors, Town Square Media, we really appreciate all that you guys have done for us. Denso, Chupan and Sons is a big sponsor for us. Kellogg's, the Air Zoo, where the event is being held,
Mm-hmm.
which I must say is just a perfect venue.
Great place.
They love veterans. A lot of their docents and employees are veterans, so it was just a natural fit with the military aircraft and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Michigan Works, of course, and then Humphrey, and I'm sure I've missed quite a few, but they're on the website as well. So we really appreciate our sponsors and what they've done for us.
Well, we thank you, Richard, for telling us about this and preparing us for what to expect on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Richard Fletcher with the State of Michigan Workforce Development Agency. Richard spends time helping veterans prepare for events like that, which you'll see at the Air Zoo on Thursday, 2 to 6 p.m., November 5th. Kalamazoo Air Zoo is at 6151 Portage Road in Portage. 8:30.